Hello, and welcome to the next class for the Jedi Path Learners program. Tonight, we're doing media analysis and the Jedi Path. And not a lot to introduce, we're just going to dive right into it. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for the slide presentations. And we'll get right into it. Media analysis and the Jedi Path, from myth to applied philosophy. How to add our understanding of the Jedi Path through fiction. A Jedi Path Academy Learners program class. And so tonight, for those of you viewing this later, everyone participating in the class knows me, but you have the right to know who I am and why I'm teaching. So my name is L. Christopher Bird. I began walking the Jedi Path in 2005 by asking, why not? I was inspired by the Jedi census phenomenon, where people were putting down Jedi as their religion, trying to get it recognized as an official religion in the Commonwealth countries. And I just thought to myself, well, why couldn't it be a real religion? And I started to figure things out. About 7 years later, I created the website JediPath.org in 2012, when I thought I had gone far enough on the path that my writings could help benefit others starting out on the Jedi Path and be Jedi equality. I was knighted at the California Jedi Gathering in 2017, fulfilling the California Jedi knighthood standards. It's not about the title, it's about the recognition of peers. It's about the standard, and not about the accolades, but I'm definitely about showing up and doing the work. And becoming a knight in California Jedi meant that I was taking on more responsibilities and more work. And this is part of my knight project for California Jedi, is running the Jedi Path Academy, teaching the path. So that's enough about me. Now let's get into the material. What is media analysis? As it relates to the Jedi Path, we use media analysis to better understand the mythological underpinnings, as well as the real-world applications that we see in Star Wars media. When we do this, we must be careful to not include anything in our path that doesn't have benefit and utility. If it does not, then it should be rejected as cruft. To help us with this, we have the APBP test created by Opie Macleod. The APBP test. What is it and how do we use it? APBP stands for applicable, practical, beneficial, and positive effect. We use the APBP test to ask if a piece of media has these qualities, and if it meets all four, then it's something we can incorporate into our applied philosophy of the Jedi Path. But wait, we skipped a step. Before we can apply the APBP test, we must first look at the piece of media we are analyzing, be it a movie, a TV show, a book, a game, or a comic, and try to understand just what it is we are seeing and its context in both the fantasy world of Star Wars mythology and any correlation to the real world or other stories or media. And so now we're going to jump right into it with the practical exercise number 1. We're going to take a look at a scene from the Marvel comic book adaptation of The Last Jedi and perform some media analysis and then apply the APBP test. I'll be describing the images and reading the dialogue while sharing the screen from my Kindle application where I have purchased a digital copy. So before we get into the practical exercise, are there any questions with what we're doing tonight, with where we're going?
Not so far.
Great. Okay, so let's get right into it. And now you should be seeing the cover of Star Wars: The Last Jedi. And we will be going to the first scene we're going to be looking at today. And so we're on Acto, and we see Luke Skywalker in his Jedi robes holding a torch. And we see internal dialogue in a text box with Luke saying, "It's time." And then in the next panel, he approaches the old Uneti tree with the torch in hand. And he says, "How many times have I come here so close to putting it all to an end, only to succumb to hesitation and doubt in the final moment? No more. Tonight it all ends. And yet I feel like," and we see Luke looking off to his side, and off from the dialogue off panel, we hear, "Feel like what?" And here we have revealed the Force ghost of Master Yoda. And Luke greets him saying, "Master Yoda." And he addresses Yoda and he says, "I'm ending all of this, the tree, the text, the Jedi. I'm burning it all down." And Yoda replies, "Come here to stop you? I have not. Never before have I succeeded in preventing you from following your own will. Start now? Why would I?" And then Luke, with a sad expression on his face, asks Yoda, "Then why have you come?" And we see Yoda in his Force Ghost flame calmly close his eyes and lift one finger into the sky. And there's a sound effect. Crash! And lightning hits the Uneti tree library, setting it ablaze. And Luke looks amazed, and he yells, "The sacred Jedi text!" And Yoda is laughing and tapping his cane, and he says, "Yee hee 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 hee, oh Skywalker, missed you I have." And Luke says, "So it is time for the Jedi to end." Yoda replies, "Time it is for you to look past a pile of old books. Read them, have you? Page turners they are not. Yes, yes, wisdom they held, but that library contained nothing that Rey does not already possess." Skywalker, still looking to the horizon, never here, now. The need in front of your nose. And he baps him with his Force Ghost cane on the head with the sound effect knock. "Lost Ben Solo you did. Lose Rey we must not." And Luke, looking tired, says, "I can't be what she needs me to be." And in the last panel, we see from behind Luke and Yoda sitting down while the Uneti tree library is burning. And Yoda says, "Heeded my words not, did you? Pass on what you have learned, strength and mastery. But weakness, folly, failure. Also, yes, failure most of all. The greatest teacher failure is. Luke, we are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters." So this is the scene we're going to be analyzing tonight. So now we're bringing up the whiteboard. Media analysis in the Jedi Path. What lessons are present in the text? What is the context for the lessons? APBP. So that's just the goal. We're going to be taking notes. So from the floor, what lessons are present in the text? What did you see that you think is a good Jedi lesson in this scene?
I'll kick it off. So I like that this lesson emphasizes that the hallmark of a good teacher is that students should outgrow them.
I'm going to write down students outgrowing teachers. Great. What else? Anyone else? Any other lesson?
That old books aren't necessarily the end-all be-all of wisdom.
Old books, the end-all be-all of wisdom. Okay, what else? Anyone else?
Old disillusioned teachers have more to teach than they think. Right. Teachers with experience have more to pass along than they might think, something like that.
Okay, we'll go with your second iteration.
Yeah.
Teachers with more. So say that again. Teachers with more experience.
I don't know. Frustrated, experienced teachers have more to pass along than they believe. Right. Even when disillusioned or whatever, frustrated.
Anyone else? What else? A lot of. So this is a real dense scene with a lot of good stuff. So we're doing good, and we'll dig into all of these once we get the lessons. What else do we have? Anyone else?
I'm not sure how to word it, but I always thought it was amusing when Yoda strikes the tree with lightning and it starts on fire, and then all of a sudden Luke seems to change his mind almost. I'm like, what did you just do? Like he called its bluff.
Yeah. Okay, we'll put that in.
As a teaching tool, maybe.
Yoda calling Luke's bluff. Anyone else?
I think Luke was looking for closure through physical means, like by destroying the books, and really he should have been looking inward for that closure.
We'll say looking for external sources when we should look within. How's that sound?
That's perfect.
Brandon, you got anything for us?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing in the the biggest thing in that entire scene is always, hold on, I'm going to pull the exact text of that scene up because I was following along, is the greatest failure, most of all, the greatest teacher failure is that we learning from our mistakes, which I kind of think calls in with the whole Luke's bluff scenario. So that's kind of repeating something, but.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. I'm glad you brought that up because that's the main thesis of the whole movie of The Last Jedi. Failure is a great teacher. We'll right? Failure. How do you spell failure?
Failure.
Fail,
Thank
you
you.
are a,
Thank you. I knew that was wrong. Okay, great. So this is enough to dig in. And we're going to do the last one first because that's the one I really dig. Thank you, Brandon. And so failure is a great teacher. So this is a lesson that Yoda knows intimately and Luke is still struggling with. And the reason why Yoda knows this is because he has experienced great failure. So looking at the whole saga, what are some of Yoda's failures? What kind of failures did he learn from? So let's talk about that for a bit. What are basically the greatest hits of Yoda's failings?
Failing to see that turning away Anakin would create a worse problem than letting Qui-Gon teach him.
Yes. Failing to see. We'll just say failing to see how to handle Anakin.
Sure.
the failure was, yeah, turning him away, right, and creating this rebellion instead of just allowing him to be trained.
Right. And so what were the consequences of that failure?
Well, Qui-Gon did it anyway in sort of a rebellion, and created a disrespect for the council right off the bat, right?
Mm.
It
Yeah.
was almost an underhanded training, or his training was already, he was already an outlaw just by being trained when he wasn't supposed to be,
Right.
which undermines the authority of the council.
Yeah. Yeah. So what else are some of Yoda's failures, some big ones?
Well, he presided over the Jedi Order, and that fell to ruin. I also think that he was culpable in the fall of the Old Republic, since part of the Jedi's mission is to serve the Republic, and so by being blindsided by Palpatine, he basically failed to, over a very long period of time, to manage a situation that allowed the Sith to basically create the Empire.
Yeah, that's probably his major failing and what he's thinking about when he says this to Luke, because he did. It was his call, and he made the wrong call, and it was a disaster. The Republic fell. The Jedi Order was wiped out. This is a major failing on Yoda's part. And what did he do? He exiled himself for 20 years, waiting for Luke to be ready and to think about what he had done wrong and ruminate and how to fix it. He was putting his hope in Luke and Leia to fix this great error of his. Yeah, that's the big one. So another failure of Yoda's is he had a Padawan that fell to the dark side. Dooku.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Dooku was Yoda's Padawan, and he became a Sith Lord. And when he talks about to Luke about you lost Ben Solo, but it's important that we don't lose Rey. And Yoda is speaking from experience at that point, because he had a student fall like Luke had a student fall. But Yoda had other students that didn't fall, you know, including Luke. Luke didn't fall, and Luke was Yoda's student, so he knew better, did better. So I think that's a good hit for Yoda's failure. So let's look. So who wants? So what do we want to do next? Anyone have a preference for the next lesson to talk about?
You want to pick us to pick one of the other lessons on the list? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Let's do external sources.
Great. External sources when we should look within. So this was Luke thinking that a physical statement, one that he had tried to do and failed many times, to try to put an end and say, okay, I'm finally doing it. I'm gonna kill the Jedi Order so it can't be resurrected. I'm gonna take away the sacred text so no one can rebuild after I'm gone. Because I mean that's what he's doing, right? He's trying to close down the Jedi Order once and for all and prevent it from rising again because of because his views of the Jedi's failures again, because failure is the thesis of the Last Jedi. But looking for external sources when we should look within. So Luke is looking to make this external, though symbolic, gesture by destroying the tree and destroying the books. And so what should he be doing instead? Anna, this was yours, wasn't it? So why don't you weigh in on this?
All right. So I think the first thing he should have done is ask himself what kind of closure he needs, like what is he trying to accomplish? And yeah, so what he's trying to accomplish. What kind of closure?
Okay.
Yeah. And then the second thing he should have done is I think he should have probably reflected on that for a while, because the conclusion that he came up with in his what I think is kind of his harried way of thinking was, if I do something physical that will symbolically end this order, and then there will be some kind of a result. I'm presuming closure here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that this comic is an illustration of how that doesn't work as well as we think it might, if we haven't looked inside of ourselves and reflected on what it is we're trying to accomplish, and how we feel about it, and if it's going to give us what we need.
So I'm going to say reflection is necessary to know what we really need.
Yeah, and I think Yoda illustrated that beautifully when he invoked lightning and he basically burned down the tree house.
Yeah, great. Okay, I think that's good. Does anyone have anything to add to this? If not, we can move on to another one. Okay, Anna, since you participated. Why don't you choose the next one that we're going to look at too?
Okay. They're all so good.
Well, we're going to get to them all. So just whatever you want to do next.
Excellent. Okay. Let's do teachers with more experience have more to pass along than they believe, even when disillusioned.
Okay. So I'm going to move this over so we have more room. So I forget whose insight was this? Teachers have more experience.
That was mine.
Great. So Jeff, why don't you weigh in on this first then?
Well, it wasn't my idea as much as Yoda saying, you know, you have more to teach than you think. Teach her about your failures as much as your successes, right? And what else are you looking for here?
Just any kind of insight you have on this. So what we're doing is we're going below the surface. We're getting into the substrate of the text. We're getting into what's inferred, what's implied, what's underneath, what supports the text. So that's what we're doing right now. Oh,
Yes.
and I was taking the note and I commented and it fell out of my head. So can you repeat your premise? I'm sorry.
It's just that Luke was frustrated and angry and disillusioned. And Yoda was sort of shaking him out of that, saying, hey, you have more to teach than you think. You screwed up in the past. Don't do it here again. And, you know, you need to stop thinking about these ancient texts, right? Which goes back to the old books not being the end all. You're not focused on what's important. You need to stop focusing on these ancient texts as something sacred and holy, and look at the mission that's presented itself in front of you. Right?
Yeah.
Training this person who's halfway there and needs some guidance to move forward.
So I'm putting down teacher shortcomings as well as successes.
Right, and be careful with your and be careful with your focus. I guess that's a different lesson.
We can add that.
Right. Luke was looking in the wrong place. Right. He was thinking these books are so critical. That is the core of the Jedi Order, and you know, he was not seeing what was right in front of him, which is this opportunity with Rey.
Not seeing opportunity before him. Great. Oh, that's a great insight. Way to go.
Right.
And so anyone else, or do you have anything further, Jeff?
I think that's all for now.
Anyone else have anything for this? For teachers have more to pass on along when they are delusioned? Great, Jeff. Why don't you go ahead and choose the next one that we're going to dig into?
Well, I started to talk about old books not being the end all and be all of wisdom. Right.
Great, we'll do that one. So old books not being the end all be all of wisdom. Who had that insight?
That was me.
Okay, Kalos, I'm always say it for me, please.
So this one's kind of funny because I think when Yoda says that there's nothing in the library that Rey doesn't already possess, it's kind of a double meaning because obviously she's already scampered off with the books by the time the tree gets torched. But I think there's also just taking it at face value is that, you know, we can, you know, look to texts for guidance, but without experience and practice, those will only take you so far.
Fantastic. Without experience and practice, books will only take you so far. That's a great insight. Fantastic. I'm so impressed. Way to go. And anyone else have anything to add to old books, not the end all be all of wisdom?
Well, there's also the temporal aspect and mindfulness and presence, right? Luke was he was thinking about the future of the Jedi Order or even destroying it, or he was thinking about the past of the Jedi Order in the sacred texts. And he wasn't present in the situation right in front of him, which is about Rey standing right in front of him, having a need, and, the universe and justice having this need for her as well, right? So his mind was in the past, his mind was in the future, right? Either reverently or destructively, and he wasn't looking at what was right in front of him. He was looking at these books, some of which he had never even read, right, as something to protect without looking what was right before him. So there's this thing about mindfulness and presence there.
Right. Okay, so we have two left: students outgrowing teachers and Yoda calling Luke's bluff. Kalos, why don't you pick? Which one would you next?
I think let's go with the students outgrowing the teachers.
Great. And let me find a space on the whiteboard to place this. Okay, students outgrowing teachers. So this is a good one. So how many students has Yoda had? He taught Jedi for 800 years. So where is he coming from when he speaks about students outgrowing their teachers? Is it theory to him? Or is this something that he's experienced time and time again? And this is Yoda we're talking about, the great Grand Master. But he says students outgrow the teachers, that we are what they grow beyond. So where is Yoda coming from when he makes this point? I would like someone else to wax Rasputic about Yoda and his experience and me, because I already talked about Yoda again with the failure one. So let's open the floor to someone else.
I guess one example is certainly from the Clone Wars when I guess the ghost of Qui-Gon basically lets him know that there's ways to basically exist beyond death. This is something that he didn't know about and had to go on a journey to discover for himself. So just because he's been a teacher for 800 years out of that point, he certainly didn't know everything. There was more for him to learn, and one of his students taught him.
So I'm going to say teachers do not know everything. Our students teach us as well. And this is so very true. Yesterday in the conversation, I even made this point in Second Life Roleplay about giving someone advice for who to take on as an apprentice. And I told them, choose someone that you can learn from. And in my own relationship with my own guide and apprenticeship relationship with Anna, that's definitely part of our relationship, is that even though I'm guiding her on the Jedi path and I'm teaching her how to be a Jedi, I'm learning so much from her. And it's a real reciprocal relationship. And in my experience, and I can see how this arc is going to go. I really think Anna's going to surpass me someday. She's going to grow beyond what I am and do better and move the path forward. And I think that's the lesson here. Students outgrowing the teachers. Teachers don't know everything. Our students teach us as well. Anyone else for students outgrowing teachers?
I have a little bit. Sorry.
Okay, I'll go. I'm just echoing what you said. I do think that the best teachers are the ones that recognize that everyone else is their teacher, including their students.
Very good, Saba. Thank you.
I had this thing on.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. I was thinking teaching in real life, teaching in role play. You don't try to make someone exactly like you or teach them every last thing you know. There's a certain point where you've taught them the basics, been there while they've struggled with things and guided them, but then they have to grow on their own. And I think, like, I'm trying to think, like, who would have gone greater than Yoda in his 800 years when he probably outlived most of the people he taught. It's not becoming as good as you and better. It's becoming your own person, putting your own kind of spin on it, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Where you grow beyond what I can teach you. This is all I can teach you. And I think you're ready to move on your own and teach someone else and grow. I think that's where my thought was going.
That's really good. So let's see. I'm going to say students are not copies. They grow beyond us in their own person. And so, and we only have Yoda calling Luke's bluff, but we got enough. So we're gonna skip that one because we've gone on a bit. And so, okay, now back to the slide presentation. So what lessons do we take for this? First, we must take away what lessons, if any, we found in this media. For each, we will ask, is it applicable? Is it practical? Is it beneficial? And does it have a positive effect? So now we're gonna input in the APBP test, and we're gonna go quickly over, but first, are there any questions about what we mean by applicable, practical, beneficial, and positive effect?
I don't think so.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to the whiteboard. And do the APBP for each of these. Old books are not the end all be all of wisdom. Without experience and practice, books will only take you so far. So, applicable, everyone? Yes or no?
I think
Yes.
so.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Practical,
sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
beneficial.
Yes.
Yes.
Does it have a positive effect?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll put a check by that one. That one passes. Not looking at what is right in front of him in the present, living in the future, living in the past and the future. So this is Luke always looking to the horizon, never on where he was, what he was doing. Basically, Luke's the reason why Yoda didn't want to teach Luke on Dagobah in the first place, and he's still doing this. So living in the moment, mindfulness, applicable,
Absolutely.
Yep.
practical,
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
beneficial,
Mm-hmm.
positive effect.
Absolutely.
Okay, check mark by that. Looking for external sources when we should look within. Ask what he's trying to accomplish, what kind of closure. Reflection is necessary to know what we really need. And then everything we discussed, remember the discussion. So, APBP, applicable,
Yes.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yes.
practical, beneficial,
Mhm.
Absolutely.
positive effect.
Yep.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Failure is a great teacher. We'll just leave it at that. Failure is a great teacher.
Mhm.
Applicable,
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Mhm.
practical,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
beneficial,
Uh-huh.
positive effect.
Yep.
Okay. Students outgrowing teachers. Teachers do not know everything, and students teach as well. Students are not copies. They grow beyond us in their own person. This is all stuff that we got from the material in our own experience. So, taking this, is it applicable?
Mhm.
Is it practical?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it beneficial?
Yep.
Does it have a positive effect?
Yeah.
Great. Teachers with more experience have more to pass along than they believe, even when disillusioned. Teachers' shortcomings and successes. And be careful with your focus, not seeing the opportunity before him. So, applicable,
Yes.
Yes.
practical,
Yes.
Yep.
beneficial,
Yes.
positive effect.
Yes.
Sure.
Great. So this is all stuff that we got from a comic book based on a movie, which we can apply to our real Jedi path and to our applied philosophy. Yeah, Jeff, question.
Can you, I'm not sure I understand the difference between beneficial and positive effect. Could you give me an example of either the definitions of those, if they're not just common English, or what would be beneficial but not have a positive effect, or the other way around?
You're right.
They seem very similar, and I'm trying to see if there's some distinction that I've missed.
Okay, well, beneficial could mean that it has a benefit for us personally, but where it could be lack of positive effect is that if we're failing that world betterment mandate, right? If it's a selfish benefit or a Jedi benefit, or
Okay.
positive effect, I should say. So that's the first example that comes to my head for a distinction. But you're right, they're very similar. But
I wonder if Opie's definitions talk about, is it beneficial to you, and is it a positive effect on the world or on the perception of the Jedi Order? Does anyone know if he went into more detail that we're not seeing here just by summarizing it, or that you read it so long ago that you might have forgotten?
I mean, when I went through the Jedi Living course, it didn't have any impact on the Jedi community as a whole. It really was, you can do something that is beneficial, but isn't positive. I'm trying to think of a really good example of something that could be beneficial but not positive. And it's not just necessarily beneficial to you. You could do something where others benefit, but it doesn't have a positive impact. It doesn't overall affect the situation positively, even though there is a benefit in it. I don't know if that makes any sense,
Okay.
my
It
explanation.
Well, I could see certain, you do certain bad things that, I don't know, you steal money, that person has more money, it's a benefit to that person, but it's not a positive thing. And I wonder if that's what they meant.
I think in part, I also think in part, it may be the difference between, and this is the silliest example that I can think of, saying to someone, your shirt is ugly, you should go change it. That might be beneficial to them, but it's not necessarily going to have a positive impact. Whereas maybe if I say, hey, I really like that shirt you have with the little Rebel Alliance symbols all over it. Have you thought about wearing that instead? It's both beneficial and it has a positive impact, because rather than them feeling bad about their choice, they might feel better about the other choice that you're leading them to make. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So both are technically beneficial to the person. They're not wearing an ugly shirt. But one of them has a positive impact, whereas the other does not.
Could it be like the line, you can give somebody a fish and they eat for the day, and you teach somebody to fish and they eat for a lifetime? Like one is both are beneficial, but one has more of a positive impact.
Right, long-term versus short-term impacts. I mean, he was saying this in the context of literary criticism, right? Or taking lessons from the language. So I'm not sure that these interpersonal examples are quite right. But okay, maybe I'll have to find the original description. And
maybe something could be positive, have a positive effect, but not be. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. I like that distinction that you said. Like beneficial is like in the moment, and positive impact is like what are the ripple effects.
Yeah, long-term versus short-term. Was that give a man a fish, teach a man to fish, right? I appreciated that too. Thank you.
Great. So practical exercise number 2. Now that you have a handle on how this is done, we're going to look at another passage from the Marvel comic book adaptation of The Last Jedi. We will use the skills we have learned so far to look at another scene and find what Jedi lessons there are in it, and apply the APBP test to see if any of it can be incorporated into our Jedi path. So I'm going to try to be a little bit more hands-off on this one, and this is going to be more student-oriented. And I want you, the participants, to take the lead in doing the interpretation this time. And we're going back to the comic book. And here we're on the resistance base at Crate. C-3PO is in the background. Lieutenant Connix is in the foreground. Lieutenant Connix says, our distress signal has been received at multiple points, but no response. And Leia is looking dejected. And she says, we fought to the end, but the galaxy has lost all its hope. The spark is out. And then we see Leia looking surprised. And dialogue from off page says, you don't believe that, you never have. And then we see a cloaked figure in silhouette coming into the command room with Leia looking at it. And he says, and you still don't, even now. And he lowers his hood to reveal that it's Luke Skywalker. And Leia exclaims from off panel, Luke. And Luke and Leia are sitting down and having an intimate conversation. And Luke says, I like your hair that way. Leia, I'm sorry. And Leia says, it's all right. I'm just glad you're here with me at the end. And Luke says to Leia, this isn't the end. just the beginning of something new. And Leia says, we can't win this fight. And Luke says, no, but there are alternatives to fighting. I came here to face him, Leia, even though I know I can't save him. And Leia responds, I held out hope for so long, but I know my son is gone. And Luke reaches out and takes Leia's hand, and he says, no one's ever really gone. And as he lifts up his hand, Han Solo's dice from the Millennium Falcon are left behind. Luke leans forward and kisses Leia softly on the forehead, and he walks out. C-3PO goes, Master Luke, and Luke winks at him as he leaves. So that's the sign. So that's the scene. I'm going to go back to the whiteboard. And clear off everything. Okay, what lessons are present in the text was the context for the lessons, and then we'll do APBP when we're done. So I'm opening this up to the floor. What lessons are present in the text?
Important to hold on to hope.
Okay. What else do we have?
There are alternatives to fighting.
Right, call back to Obi-Wan there. What else do we got?
No one's ever really gone.
Okay, so we're running a little long, so I think we're going to go with just these, if that's okay with the class.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's start with actually, I'm going to rearrange this real quick. There we go. Hold on to hope. Lucy came up with this one. So let's expand on that.
Yeah, like around that, when Luke says you don't believe that, you never have, to me it's kind of like about our self-defeating thoughts and how they don't serve us and they're not really who we are. And like we have the choice of whether to hope or not. So why not hope?
Fantastic, Saba. Thank you. Anyone else want to opine on this lesson? Hold on to hope.
It ain't over till it's over. And, in Buddhism, we talk about the not knowing mind, right? So we try to predict the future, and we never actually really know what's going to happen. And we should go into things not knowing, remembering that we don't really know.
Wow, that's really good, Jeff. Thank you. Anyone else? Big thumb up from Seva, I see.
I don't know if I can tie this back. In the last thing, I noticed that a lot of the theme of learning from failures, part of what Luke had, his failing was not realizing to learn from his mistake, that his mistake made him lose hope. And even Yoda's Padawan that fell, Dooku, if he just stopped there and be like, I had a Padawan that fell, I'm not a good teacher, and didn't learn anything from that, and caused that for him to be his greatest failure would be to stop moving forward. And the hope for the future is one of those things that always has to keep burning. So when we can move on through a failure, that all is not lost, I guess.
Okay, I think that's good. So let's do, there are alternatives to fighting. So let's talk about the context of where Luke got this idea that there are alternatives to fighting. What were the examples he has of that?
Obi-Wan in A New Hope at the end, fighting with Vader, right? If you kill me, you will only make me stronger. And he stopped and he laid down his lightsaber, stopped fighting.
Anyone else?
I think it means there are many choices that can be made during a confrontation. And so during this particular upcoming confrontation, there are choices other than fighting that can be made.
Great insight, Anna. Thank you. Anyone else?
I think especially in the context of this, there's a goal that's not necessarily about defeating the opponent. It's about buying time for others to escape. So your focus doesn't need to be, I'm going to destroy you, I'm going to beat you. It can be something else.
Focus does not need to involve losing or winning. Let's put it up in that way.
That
How's that
good.
sound? Okay, anything else for our alternatives to fighting?
I think one of the examples that is the Luke Skywalker example is that sometimes looking to fight will make it worse. Return of the Jedi, him fighting Vader did absolutely nothing, but when he finally threw away his lightsaber and refused to fight, that's when he gave Anakin the ability to come back. You see in Last Jedi, he thinks that Ben is falling to the dark side. He draws his saber and basically is ready to start swinging sabers, and and what happens? Ben wakes up and it's made it worse. So sometimes fighting will just make it worse.
Right, and plus the obvious that Jedi should be reducing conflict and protecting and defending, diplomats first and only fighting as a last resort. It's pretty straightforward, pretty straightforward interpretation of that. Diplomat first, fighting last.
Yeah, I have thinky thoughts about that, but that's for another time. But Jeff, reach me for that one later. Okay. So let's go with no one is ever really gone.
Yeah, I think it's about how the impacts that people had in our lives are continuing. Like that story is still continuing. They're living through us.
Okay, so I paraphrased. People live through us. The effects on our lives outlast their presence in it. I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth, but that seems to be what you were getting at.
Beautiful. Perfect.
Anyone else? No one is really ever gone. Think about all the people that Luke has lost in his life, starting all the way back from A New Hope throughout his journey. How do you think that affected his viewpoint that no one is ever really gone?
Well, this is sort of the embodiment of there is no death, there is the Force, right?
Right.
And his folks returning to him as Force ghosts, and then just the idea of his loved ones who are gone in the context of that idea or that belief.
I think in the context of the scene that we're talking about Ben, who's technically still alive and just fallen to the dark side, that he is reaching out to Leia with hope that he probably should have had himself before this point. But it also speaks to me about the community we have, where we can lift each other up when hope seems lost. We share hope.
Mm-hmm. And you're onto something there. I mean, he's talking about how Ben might return like Anakin did, right? He's had that experience once. And you're right that he's talking about Ben Solo, and now there's still an opportunity because he's not really gone, because he isn't dead.
Yeah. Redemption is possible.
Right. Yes.
Great. So I think we're ready to do the APBP test. Any questions before we begin? Okay, hold on to hope. Self-defeating, though self-defeating thought don't serve us. Oh, I should say doesn't. Oh, well. We have the choice to hope or not, so why not hope? Ain't over till it's over. We don't know what will happen. Tying back, failure is not a reason to stop moving on through a failure. All is not lost. So these are the lessons from that. Is it applicable?
Yep.
Yeah.
Practical?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Beneficial?
Yep.
Yeah.
You don't sound so enthused with that. Was that Brandon?
Give up. It'll be better if you do.
Well,
I'm kidding.
This one is honestly, I think, the most complicated of all of them, in that holding on to hope can be a double-edged sword.
It can.
Because it can be beneficial and it can be positive, or it can be the exact opposite. Because, sorry, the one that I was mulling over as you were asking this is, just it ain't over till it's over, and it made me think of the sunk cost fallacy.
Oh, yeah.
And how, you can get into this position of, no, I've put so much effort into this. I have to hold on that this is going to pull itself together. And it's really, kind of a delusion. You're deluding yourself that it will turn around. So I think that hold on to hope, yes, it can absolutely be APBP, but I think it also has to be considered that we have to really parse it out as to whether there is genuine hope or we're telling ourselves it's not over when it is. Sorry, that's what was on my mind.
That's really what I really wanted somebody to do. And that's so full marks, head of the class, Brandon. Way to go. Sorry to interrupt, Lucy. Go ahead.
No, I was thinking of examples that where you can still hope Ben will come around, but if you put all your eggs in that basket constantly, you're going to be wearing yourself out. That there does need to be a practical, I can hope for this person, but I don't have what it takes to constantly be at this project. Doesn't have to be a person. It is going to go south, and and just wearing myself out over it is gonna be detrimental.
So I'm going to mark this yes and no, depending on environment and context. How does that sound to everyone?
Well, I think it's right to have hope and to hold on to the hope, but not being attached to a specific outcome.
There you go.
Yeah, that's
Right.
fair.
That's good. That's something we teach about in the attachment class and stuff, about attachment to desired outcome. That's very good. So I still think it's good to have yes and no depending on environment and context. I think that's a good insight because not everything's gonna mark all four. So for this one, if we're going to incorporate it into our path, we have to be mindful of the context and what we're doing, and that it's true hope and not a false hope. Okay, are we ready to go on to the next one?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, there are alternatives to fighting. And everything we talked about that. Is it applicable?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it practical?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Brandon, there's another, yeah.
If you know you're gonna lose, then it's not practical to keep fighting.
No, it's true. Although, again, there are situations where, again, it's all going to come down to the context of the situation. I know that you and I have spoken recently about something like fascism, where that is something that has to be fought. Now, whether that is a physical confrontation, that's different, but there are alternatives to fighting has sort of a broad stance. And sometimes, I don't think you could really say that in World War II, there was much of an alternative to fighting when it came down to it. So again, I think that it depends entirely on the context. And yeah, I think that we can say that there are a damn lot more situations where there are alternatives to fighting than when there aren't. But I think you have to be aware of those scenarios where there aren't. Sorry.
That's great. No, you're doing perfect, Brandon. No need to apologize. This is exactly what we wanted to do, because it's good that we found things that don't actually perfectly match the APBP test. Because it also works as a filter.
We're not talking about whether we choose to fight or not. We're talking about whether it's a useful lesson to know that there are alternatives to fighting.
That's your interpretation. Let's hear it, Jeff.
Right? Okay.
And okay, so we were practical. Was practical the one that Brandon went with? Is that where we were?
I don't remember.
Okay, so beneficial alternatives to fighting. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Does it have a positive effect?
It can, yes.
It can. So.
Well, I think what was said before, just having the knowledge that there are all alternatives to fighting is undeniably positive impact,
True.
whether or not you choose to engage in those alternatives.
Absolutely
Right.
true.
Yes. Okay. No one is ever really gone. So let's just do it real quick. APBP. Applicable? Kalos looks uncertain. Let's hear it, Kalos.
I think it depends on the aspects of it. I would say the aspect, the sort of that second aspect, talking about, redemption is possible. So just looking to somebody, don't just assume that whoever you're dealing with is just a monster that can't be saved. That's applicable, I would say, for sure.
That said, sometimes people are gone. And like, so it depends on how attached we are to what gone means. Like, are they absent from our lives? If all we have left are memories, then I guess technically they're not really gone. But again, and depending on the context, sometimes people are gone. They do leave. And I think that needs to be acknowledged. So it is, I would say it's applicable based on context.
Applicable based on
Agreed.
context. Practical? Got a thumb up from Seva. And anyone want a vocal?
I think it's both applicable and practical if you think about it from the very face value of, like, if you lose a loved one. I have a friend whose mom just passed away, and she
I'm so
said,
sorry.
like, it's thank you. And she says, like, she's not really gone, she's living through me. She literally said that's her belief. And from that perspective, that belief that no one is really ever gone is very applicable and practical for her, because it's helping her to move through this transition.
Very good. And beneficial, I would say.
Correct.
And has a positive effect in that scenario. Great. Anyone else for APBP? I think we're on beneficial. Anyone have other opinions on beneficial of no one is ever really gone? Okay, so again, this one is, it can, depending on environment and context. Very good, everyone. We just did this, so this is a superfluous slide that we didn't have to go through. So in conclusion, media analysis can be a powerful tool to deepen our connection to the underlying myths that shape our applied philosophy of the Jedi Path. The APBP test is an easy to remember tool to help us decide if a piece of Star Wars media has benefit and utility. So everyone agree with the thesis?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
Any questions or comments before we wrap this up?
This is really, really awesome. Sorry I wasn't able to join until later, but this is really immediately useful for me. So thank you.
Oh, great. I'm glad. And I hope for those of you viewing this later on YouTube that you find benefit and utility from this, from this class. So as we end, always want to remind everyone of further resources that we have. We have the website, Jedi Path Academy at jedipath.org. Jedi Path Academy YouTube, which if you're watching this, you're there already, but it's in there. My book, Your First Step into a Larger World, or Basic Jedi 101 material to get you started from not knowing anything about the Jedi Path to being able to walk it in 10 easy to read chapters. And we have a Facebook presence. And we have a Twitter presence. And that's it. So I wanted to thank everyone for coming tonight. It was a great class. I'm glad you all came. And I'm very happy you did. And we're going to end things with, as I usually do, by saying, may the Force guide you and protect you always.